you guys? Like, move on. Like we just ridiculous.
And
Unpredictable is a prime example of that. Like, dude, you don't like the conversation that we're having? You want us to move on? Go start your own podcast. Talk to your own people. What the hell is wrong with you? We up here talking basketball. Don't tell us to move on. We move on when we're ready to move on. You don't like it? Leave. That's how simple that is. We're actually having a really good conversation. And we're talking basketball here. Whether you like it or not, bounce. I'm sick of these dudes up here talking to us like, yo, move on. What are you talking? Even if I'm capping, even if you disagree with it, don't tell me to move on.
Nigga.
What we're doing here is we're talking basketball. If you don't like it, leave. Fuck out of here, man. Telling me to move on. This is our show. This is what we do here.
We have talked about the NBA doing all types of basically new ideas and proposed brainstorming measures to limit tanking. So this is what they're saying that they can do. And I want you guys to talk to me about what you like and what you don't like. The first, and this is reported by Shams. The first thing is they will be limiting pick protections to either top 4 or 14 and higher. So you can only protect the top 4 picks, or you can only protect picks from 14 to 30. Also, they will no longer be allowing a team to draft in the top 4 2 years in a row. So you can tank if you like. You just can't get a top 4 pick 2 years in a row.
That's stupid.
And last but not least, they will be locking in lottery positions after March 1st. How do we feel about this?
So Damian and Real Talk talking about tanking the Mavericks, y'all just have no integrity.
Yeah, but see, hey, Damian, you know how we're still right? It's because
why do we act like the best players are only in the top 4 picks, though?
Exactly. I was just about to say that, Damian. Especially in this draft class. Especially in this draft class.
That's why.
Especially in this draft class, when this is reportedly one of the more talented draft classes ever. So I can still get
the one that just happened, or the one coming up. Real Talk.
No, the one that's about to happen.
Okay, got you.
Mm-hmm.
For every Paul Pierce that's picked at 10, right? For every Steph Curry that's picked at 7 or 8, there's
Johnny Flynn's all over the place.
Yes, that's exactly what's going on.
This isn't the NFL. You're not going to get the greatest show on turf at pick 20. Usually the best guys are 1, 2,
That's
and
always
3.
been true, though.
And then you're just like you're getting real lucky. Like if you hit a guy
have to bring Johnny Flynn into this stuff, man. I could have left Johnny.
Yes,
in
I know how you feel about. I know how you feel about him.
The expected value of a number 1 pick is considerably higher than all other picks, but the expected value of the 3rd pick is actually higher than the 2nd pick. The 13th pick is typically, historically, better than the 11th pick. So there is a little bit of, like, it's not a flat line. It kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. And of course, number 3 is getting elevated a lot because Michael Jeffrey Jordan was the 3rd overall pick, and number 1 might be getting depressed a little bit, or number 2 might be getting depressed a little bit because Len Bias passed away. There's a lot of things, that go into this, but let's just not pretend that James Wiseman wasn't a number 2 pick. Let's not pretend Michael Olowokandi didn't go number 1. Let's not pretend that Darko Milicic didn't go number 2. Let's not pretend that these things didn't happen.
1.
The expected value of a pick has to matter here, though. That it's not a guarantee you have the number 1 pick, it's going to work out. It might not work out. And it's not a guarantee that you have the number 15 pick, we can't get a star because you got Kawhi Leonard and you got Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, if you actually go through the history of the 13th overall pick, you realize Kobe Bryant, Devin Booker, and Donovan Mitchell were all 13th overall picks.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. That's in your lifetime. That's in my lifetime.
Are we potentially overthinking this? Because, like, obviously, well, I don't want to say obviously, but if I can offer any of you guys as franchise forever a top 3 pick, or if I offered you guys a top 10 pick, you would take the top 3 pick. Like, everybody wants the higher pick.
You should. I think it's a good thing. First of all, it sucks that the best players in our sport have to spend the first 7 or 8 years typically with a really, really bad team. That's not good. That's not good because those teams ended up there for a reason. This is like saying that every single year we have like this amazing company and we're going to give it to the most broke human being in America every single year. Like, oh, you got bad credit, no credit, come on down. Here's a great Fortune 500 for you to manage. Like, why the hell am I letting you manage a Fortune 500 if you got bad credit? Like, maybe you got bad credit for a reason because you make bad decisions. Do I necessarily think that Trey Johnson is better off in Washington, or would I rather he be in OKC? I'd rather he be in OKC for real. Like, because as somebody who's watched Trey Johnson for the last 2 years,
I don't.
Why?
because I don't like when the rich just get richer. Why should the best players in the draft always go to the best team?
It's not about the rich getting richer.
The rich getting
casual. But do you ever think about the hand that terrible franchises play in ruining careers?
That's the part about sports. It's in every single league, from the baseball to the NFL, that they got bad ownership. That look at the NFL draft. It's always the Jags and the Browns at the top. But why should I want the best players in the draft going to Kansas City every year? That's bad for
the reason why. Because you don't want the reason why, to your point, Penn. The reason why is because I don't want the Clippers to ruin this kid, which is what they'll do. The reason why I'd want this, because I don't want whoever they are, they're gonna ruin this kid. I know for a fact that if Oklahoma City ends up bagging a number 1 or a number 2 pick, they're gonna take way better care of this guy than if he ended up with the Clippers. They're gonna ruin him. They're going to wreck this guy. So I do want, in that particular situation, I 100% want the rich to stay rich, because I know that he's going to take way better care of this guy than this team is. 100% I want that. I don't want to see AJ DeBonsta with the Clippers. They're going to wreck him. They're going to ruin him.
Hang on, because there's a second part of this. There's a second part of these rules. Okay, there's a second part of these rules, which is the cap. Okay. And it's impossible to have 4 max players, 5 max players, whatever. So if AJ DeBonsta does go to OKC, well, inevitably that means that J-Dub or Chet are eventually going to get moved off, that AJ Mitchell is going to be priced out, that Cason Wallace. Look, if you want to look at it this way, players are most impressionable, in my opinion, between the ages of 13 and 25. That is where I want them with good trainers. That is where I want them with good high school programs, good AAU programs. I want them with good people. I want them in good. I want them with good agents. I want them in good pro programs. Problem is, sometimes you get to the league and you got a team that's supposedly a professional basketball team that's using an NFL medical staff.
With you on the notion that it's better for the players if they end up in better organizations. I believe that in any sport. But how is this good for the league overall, as far as competitive standpoint, on how these teams were bad? They need better players.
I'll take your situation. I'll raise your situation. Let's say you're the Washington Wizards, right? And let's say you didn't get a great player because you don't know how to develop one, you don't know how to find one, and you certainly wouldn't know how to train one. So let's just say you get a bad player in your draft, but I'm the OKC Thunder and I keep getting great players. Let's say I got this guy Thomas Sorber and he's amazing, but I can't sign him. I got Cason Wallace, he's one of the best guard defenders, but I can't pay him. Guess what? After 4 years, he's a restricted free agent. Guess what you got? Because you don't have anyone to pay. You have money.
After 4 years, it's not going to be the face of my franchise. Like, if you're a Washington Wizard, you need a face of the franchise at the top 3.
But you have clearly shown yourself inept to, number one, how many times have we seen Zion Williamson? Zion Williamson's a great example. What the hell was the hope level on Zion Williamson? I'll guarantee you it's just about as high as the hope level on Cooper Flagg right now, right? I like the Coopers with Jason Kidd. You know why? Because I trust Jason Kidd.
But AD got his heights in New Orleans, though.
Well, and you didn't care, by the way. Real talk, you didn't care. He was 28 and 10. He was 28 and 10, and one of the best. I didn't care. The best, arguably the best defensive player in the game. 28 and 10, and they were actually in the playoffs, and they were losing to the Golden State Warriors. And you know what? You didn't care. And I don't mean you.
How are you telling?
This is called.
Okay, so what do you mean by that though? Like you didn't.
What I mean by that is to answer Casual's question. Casual, you talk about the competitive spirit and you talk about the parity in the league. When the New Orleans Pelicans is in the playoffs, people don't care nearly as much as when the Knicks are in the playoffs, or when the Lakers are in the playoffs, or when the Celtics are in the playoffs, or when the Miami Heat are in the playoffs. They don't care. You say that you care about the underdog, but when the underdog is there, you ain't watching.
But that's not how you design a league.
But what happens? What happens when Detroit doesn't?
That's what I'm saying. Like, why don't we just have like an 8-team league then? That's not how you design a league. Like, might as well just cut all of them out.
But Casual, the cap makes it so that you can't do that. Like what I was saying with the Washington example is, at some point.
Well, there's no guarantee that I'm going to get the best. Like, so look, that's why
Tracy
we give him the draft.
The Raptors could go be the face of the franchise of Orlando.
You keep talking about, they can do it in free agency. That's a lie, because the free agents. I don't have the rights to Kevin Durant if he hits the market.
How did Houston get James Harden, dude?
He's a free agent. You know who I have the rights to? A Cooper Flagg, a Con Kneppel. If I draft him, they can't pick where they can go.
And then you're going to lose him. But then you're going to lose him.
This
If
is
you're not
such
down.
It's better to have loved and lost and then not love at all, right?
How did Houston get James Harden?
I was going to get you on my side.
How did Houston get James Harden?
But what happens when Detroit?
Because OKC didn't want to pay into the tax.
Perfect. How did Orlando get Tracy McGrady?
Yes, they could have.
Those guys were in MVP talks, yo. So if you want to talk about you can't get the face of your franchise, well,
all right, I have a higher odds of getting my face of the franchise in the draft than via trade.
Actually,
you're a bad team.
Okay.
That part I could get with Casual. Yes.
You don't. As a league,
that part Casual. Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
As a league or as an overall system, you don't offer assistance based off the result. You offer the assistance to help and assist. And it is upon let's take it like to a school setting, right? If I'm a school and I offer free tutoring to everybody, right? Let's say to my lesser students, to the bad students, I offer free tutoring to all the bad students, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to offer it to all the bad students, even though yes, some people are going to take advantage of it and some people aren't. But I don't then say, oh, student that isn't taking advantage of it. Oh, we have students that aren't taking advantage of it. So I'm just going to cut it off completely or just access it for the ones who do well with it. That's not how you run assistance. You do assistance by offering it to the public and you let whoever takes advantage of it take advantage of it. That's how assistance works.
Yes.
So the reason why the bad teams get the top picks is because those teams are bad and they need assistance. They need good players. So it is upon.
That's
so whether if you're, I'm going to give you the number 1 to number 3 pick or whatever. If you're Charlotte, yes, you may not manage that asset correctly, but because
you had the opportunity,
because you exist doesn't mean now I have to cut off the assistance. That's not how that works.
You shouldn't be incentivizing being bad.
I think real talk. I think you make a valid point with that. But with those schools and now what you offering that tutoring, what's going to ultimately happen is that the bad students who end up taking it and they get better, guess what's going to happen? Other schools are going to see that. Bigger schools are going to see that. And now those kids that are going to your school, now they're going to go to better schools. So all you doing is tuning these kids up to go somewhere else and be productive and be better. And that's what's going on in the league. So a guy like and don't get me wrong, Casual, I think it sucks. I do. I think it sucks because I think Minnesota, I think they're going to ultimately lose Anthony Edwards at some point. I think he's going to end up in a bigger market. I do. I ultimately think they're going to end up losing him because he's going to end up outgrowing Minnesota, just like James outgrew Cleveland. I would have loved to have seen James stay in Cleveland. I would have loved to have seen James finish his career in Cleveland, but he ended up outgrowing it, just like Anthony Edwards is going to ultimately end up outgrowing Minnesota. With that being said, if you have an opportunity to draft, I would much rather see you get drafted to somebody that I know is going to take care of you, that I know has a good developmental system, that I know they're going to be good and they're going to take care of you and you're going to turn into that player that we think that you can be, as opposed to these teams where we know for a fact, because of your history, you are going to ruin this kid.
Then what do we do with the bad teams, though? Like, if you don't give them a chance to get better, like what Real Talk is saying, then that's going to be really bad for the league overall. It's going to make half the league unwatchable if we don't. It's better. Yes, it's better for the players if they go to a great situation. But for the league as a whole, you need these bad teams to be better, or else it starts affecting the entire product. Now OKC is going to be facing the bottom of the barrel, like G League teams, for half of the season. That's like 40 games. So if
Casual,
we
you don't care about what's going on in the show.
But this is called player's choice. This is not organization choice. It's not owner's choice. This is player's choice. And as a player's choice, I would assume this would be the one platform that would be thinking players first. Look, man, every single time I see a player as talented as AJ DeBonsa or Cam Boozer, I see $500 million. That's what I see. I see $500 million going into enterprise into this player that they can one day potentially become a future billionaire in America. This is what I see. And within that social change, there is a bigger conversation to be had about what these players represent to their communities, to their cities, to their states, what they could do for basketball for the next generation in their state. Look at what LeBron has done for Akron. Look at what LeBron has done for the state of Ohio. Every one of these players. So every single time one of these bullshit ass franchises takes one of these players and sits them, doesn't develop them, gets them injured, overplays them, underplays them, mismanages them, makes them homesick, whatever the hell it is. I see that money just go away. It just goes away, and it never comes back.
You just mentioned LeBron, though. The Cleveland
What?
Cavaliers were terrible before
LeBron.
They were terrible after LeBron.
Was going to be successful anywhere.
But Penn, here's the thing, though.
Bilal
a lot of these guys
Coulibaly
are
is not
exceptions.
LeBron James.
Chris Paul was an exception. He went to the Charlotte Hornets. They were not good before him. They're not good after him. Dwight Howard was an exception.
Yes, they
I
were.
can list off
They were making
all
the
of these
playoffs.
guys.
Generation
John Wall went to the
Ron.
Washington Wizards.
They were making
John
the-
Wall was an
that's not true,
exception.
Ron.
No, chill. What I'm
Exactly
saying
right.
is these guys are exceptions no matter what. Like when you get these top picks, a lot of these guys are exceptions. John Wall was an exception. We can run down a ton of number one picks. Yes, some of them busted. But we've seen guys go to good franchises and not be good. We've seen a shit ton of guys go to terrible franchises and become $500 million guys.
We don't even have to go to past history. Many right now, especially after trading Luka Doncic, would deem Dallas a horrible franchise. But Cooper Flagg, the number one pick, has come in, and even on a bad franchise, he's improved tremendously just within the year because he's that good. He's Cooper Flagg.
Real talk.
And
They're
how you
not a
turn
bad
team
franchise.
around.
About the number one team in the East
Real
right
talk.
now.
Okay, but hold on.
So
just
people,
went to the
wait,
finals 2 years ago.
Ron, let him answer this question. So, Penn, you're telling me that people wouldn't say the Dallas Mavericks were a bad franchise into the season?
I don't care what people say.
Okay, what
I
do you
care
say?
what
do
I
you
say.
think?
And what I'm telling you is
and
this
you
team
said
just went
that
to the
trading
finals
Luka
2
Doncic
years ago.
is the worst trade of all time. That's what you said.
So
Well, okay,
what the
so
hell
what
does-
organization did that?
Dan
Well,
Gilbert is also terrible. That
let's
doesn't change your training staff. That doesn't change your medical staff. That doesn't change your coaching staff. Jason Kidd is a fantastic
No, it does
coach.
not.
If there's
Penn,
any
let's double
coach-
down on it.
What-
Penn,
what-
let's double down on it. Let's
Okay.
even forget Cooper Flagg and the Dallas Mavericks. You don't think that's a bad franchise? I know a bad franchise with a guy that I know you love right now, and you would love to have him in Toronto because he is a good player, but he got drafted to a bad franchise. Yet, however, he's balling right now. He was leading the Rookie of the Year race just a couple weeks ago in Charlotte. Con Knippel.
Okay. What about
Have
it?
they wrecked him? Have they ruined him?
No, because you know what happened? Con Knippel, Ryan Cockbrenner, Zion James, these guys, they all walked in and they changed the culture.
Oh,
They
my
changed
God.
that
All
culture.
right, y'all.
No,
Oh,
hang
my-
on. No,
Why you fighting that?
Isn't that the
Don't-
point,
why-
man?
don't
like,
you
like,
want
a
me
player
to
can't come in and
they
change
drafted
coaches'
those
on?
dudes.
Are you
They
serious
drafted
right
those
now?
dudes. Are you
Penn
kidding me right now?
just
They're winning.
said, chill. Are you out? You guys just told
Okay,
me
isn't that the
that these
point?
guys can't go to franchises like Charlotte because they will get ruined. Now,
Hold
all
on.
of a sudden, in
Did
30
Charlotte
games,
hire
hold on, time out.
Charles Lee?
In 30 games, you mean to tell me Zion James, Ryan Kalkbrenner, a second pick, Con Knippel, a guy who people weren't even all that high on, went to Charlotte and said, you know what,
Wasn't
LaMelo,
high on.
Brandon Miller, Miles Turner, or Miles Bridges, you guys sit down and listen to this because now we're the franchise and we're changing this whole thing.
Well,
You mean to
based
tell me that happened from those three guys?
It happened
Or-
because the coaching staff allowed it, and because Charles Lee is a damn good coach, and anyone who has watched that dude slowly progress there. Look, man, Jordy Fernandez is a good coach. I've been up here telling y'all for years, Jordy Fernandez is a good coach, and now the Brooklyn Nets are actually playing good basketball. They knocked off the Raptors. They knocked off the Philadelphia 76ers. Charlotte is much better this year. And by the way, it's very easy to take over leadership when there are no leaders. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, no offense. You're not leaders. So Con Knippel and Zion James coming in from Duke, they could just take over. And they have set a good standard for
But
work
that
ethic,
doesn't count for
communication.
being a bad
and-
team that's drafting at the top.
That's
of
the point we're
draft.
making.
That's why you draft the
Exactly.
players.
That's the point
That's
there.
why you get the
Exactly.
players.
Bad and good are not they are not static concepts. They are fluid concepts. It is possible for a team that has a great development coach to lose that development coach and no longer be a great development team. It's possible. It's also possible for a historically trash franchise like I don't know, Charlotte to hire a good coach, or Brooklyn to hire a good coach and suddenly be a good place. I don't think I had any problems with some of my favorite draft picks going to Brooklyn because I trust Jordy. And I don't have any problem with Con Knippel going to Charlotte because I trust Charles Lee. And I trust Darko Rakovic. I trust there's a lot of coaches in this league that I do trust. There's organizations that I trust more than others.
And Ron wants to completely leave. Ron wants to completely leave out what the history of this franchise has shown us. I ain't even talking about Charlotte. I'm talking about all of these franchises, whether it's good, bad, or in the middle. What they've shown us in terms of development. More times than not, when you watch the Charlotte Hornets, what have they done with their talent? I can tell you right now what they haven't done with it. They haven't turned it into what it should have been. This right now, what's going on with this influx of talent that they have, it looks great. Now, can they continue to do this? That remains to be seen. But what we've seen in the past from the Charlotte Hornets, it is a wasteland. You go there to die. They are going to wreck you. That's why I would much rather, if this kid that plays for Kansas, Peterson, if he ends up in Oklahoma City, or if he ends up with not even Oklahoma City, that's a bit of a stretch. I'm not going to do that casual. But if he ends up in like Dallas somewhere, or maybe even Utah, because Utah looks like they're trying to do something with their franchise, right? It looks like they have a plan. If he ends up somewhere where they're trying to develop him, as opposed to they're just going to completely wreck him, like what's going on in Charlotte, I would much rather see him somewhere where he's going to turn it that we would like to see.
We're not talking about what we would rather.
Who did Charlotte ruin, by the way?
No, keep going, real talk. Keep going.
I know. I'm saying like
who did Charlotte ruin?
I'm even like,
who did Charlotte ruin? Or have they just not hit on a franchise cornerstone?
Well,
Did they
wait,
ruin
Damien,
him?
I can answer that question for you right now, Damien, with what I'm about to tell y'all. And this is not foreign. I don't understand why you guys are doing this. Maybe it's because Penn did that whole "this is player's choice." We got to worry about the player first. What about the player? Y'all keep talking about these franchises ruining players when all players aren't created equal. Y'all are making it seem like y'all are not talking about the other part of this. What about the players that ain't showing up to workouts until they 30 minutes late? What about the dudes that aren't taking it serious too? What about that part of this? This whole conversation is a good conversation, but you have to also take into account that everybody doesn't want to get better. Everybody doesn't know how to get better. Everybody isn't just going to.
But Ox, ain't that your job to find out who these guys are before you draft them? Ain't that your job to find out who these guys are?
So you know better than that. You know better than that.
Culture.
Like, look at
very
Golden
important.
State. Weren't they in the lottery for like
these one
3
and
straight
done
years?
dudes?
We know who they drafted. Like, what is Kuminga? What is Wiseman? Look at all these guys. These guys have definitely just improved so much for being in a great Golden State system.
Right. Thank you. Kuminga,
I
James
think
Wiseman. They had to get James Wiseman out of there so
bad
fast.
Teams can't be incentivized. Or it's not incentivized for losing, but bad teams can't be, being lifted up. It's just like in anything.
James
Like, bro,
Wiseman
if you help, people in the country get smarter or people in the country make more money, that's better for the overall of the country. It's just like, in the NBA, it's better for the overall of the league if we help these bad teams out just so we can have a more competitive league and more parity. It's bad it would be if we just make Los Angeles get the number 1 pick every year. The team that can always get the top free agent because it's Los Angeles, the team that will always make the most money because they're in the biggest market and have the most fans. And now they get the number 1 pick every year. That is terrible for the league.
System, but that's not how the system is structured.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all, Casual.
But you're taking it to
What
an
are you
extreme to
suggesting,
win
though?
the point. And Casual, no one is saying that every great player needs to go to OKC. Everyone's not saying every top pick got to go to San Antonio. What we're saying is, can we do something about incentivizing teams being bad to the point where teams are going out and deliberately being bad year over year, knowing that there's this nice first round pick waiting for them? I will tell you this
Penn,
right
you
now.
love
the
tanking.
actual value. No, I don't love tanking,
you're an
Ox.
advocate for tanking.
I do not love tanking, Ox. I think strategically sometimes it is wise to do so. And do you know why it's wise to do so? Because that number 1 overall pick, when it hits, i.e. Cooper Flag, when it hits, i.e. Victor Wembanyama, when it hits, i.e. Anthony Davis, Anthony Edwards,
Sure.
When it hits, that is like you got a $60 million asset tied up on $12 to $13 million. In terms of building out a competitive roster around that player, just like really just hitting anywhere in the first round, it is a crazy advantage for those first 4 years. And you better not waste it. Especially if you got a guy like Cooper Flag who's showing you he's ready to compete right away. So what I'm saying is the incentive to do so is always there. I think from the league perspective, it's probably not the greatest thing where teams are sitting healthy stars in January and basically screwing the fans over. I mean, there is somebody out there who probably can afford to go to 1 or 2 sporting events a year.
There will be no fans of Charlotte if you don't let them at least get the number 1 pick. There will be no fans of New Orleans if you don't let them think they can get a top 5 pick.
Who cares?
Zion.
Who cares?
What do you mean? Who cares? Well, then what? Just get rid of the franchises?
No.
You want to just subtract the bad
We're going to be
teams,
out of a
man?
job.
The thinking is so small here about
Who
thinking about
cares?
Charlotte and New Orleans. I'm thinking about the league. The
That's the
league as a
league.
That's
product.
the
You're
league.
clearly not
That's
thinking
the
about the
league.
league if you saying who cares if nobody goes to the Charlotte Hornets games.
No. You are under the misinformation that all 30 teams count the same. They do not.
Obviously, they're
All
not.
30 markets
Obviously,
do not
we
count
know
the
that.
same.
Okay,
The
so
Okay,
you
it was
wanna
a
just
point where
get rid of
OKC's
the bottom
market didn't
teams?
count. Yeah. It
The
was
problem-
it was a
Can I
moment
say
in time where the San
something? Can I say
Antonio
something?
Spurs
Oh my
sucked.
God. Look, man.
It was
all
a moment
this
in
money-
time where the
Can I say
Houston Rockets were terrible.
Respect the Spurs.
Now they're
All
at the
the-
top of the league because of the draft.
all
There's-
the money that comes into the league is based on the average game.
Not just because
And
of
the average
draft.
game,
Don't do that,
unfortunately,
Ron.
the Lakers
Not because of
have
the
to
draft.
play the Hornets.
Wait a minute.
the
Penn.
Why
Jazz.
is okay?
Wait a
Why
minute,
is
Penn.
OKC
I
where they're
can't
at?
have
Why
half my
are the
schedule
Rockets at
be
where they're
against
at?
the
Why are
Well,
the
that's why
Spurs
you
at
have
where they're
Rockets
at
the-
right
the
now?
Hornets.
Keep going, Penn. Penn, keep going.
I
Penn. Keep
cannot
going,
have
Penn.
half my games. Like if I'm the Lakers, right? I got to sell tickets to these games. I got to sell
Sure.
tickets not only to the games. I got to sell these games to advertisers. Now, let's just say I'm going to Amazon, I'm going to Hulu, I'm going to wherever my games are, and I'm saying Dallas Mavericks versus Los Angeles Lakers, March 2nd. Okay, and it just so happens that March 2nd rolls around, and these two teams are worse than expected. Anthony Davis is out last second. LeBron James is out. Now my advertisers are like, why the fuck am I paying you to broadcast this game again? People have more options than literally ever to do something else, anything else. The NBA's competition is not going. Adam Silver is not thinking about what's good for Charlotte and what's good for Dallas and what's good for Houston. He's thinking about what's good for the NBA as it pertains to we are competing with the NFL. We are competing with FIFA. We are competing with the EuroLeague.
Yeah,
we are
Penn,
competing with
Penn,
YouTube.
Penn,
We are competing
time
with
out, time
Netflix.
out. I love how you brought up the NFL.
Sure.
Why is the NFL as successful as they are?
Don't know shit about the NFL.
Bad
Please
teams
please
get
enlighten
the
me.
number one pick. The second bad team gets the number 2 pick. The third bad team gets the number 3 pick. They get great parity across the board because if you suck, if your team has holes, you get the best
don't
chance
get
to
parity.
fill your holes.
But they don't
That's
get
why
calls.
the NFL works. And that's why I hate the draft lottery, because why should I be in a league where San Antonio, Dallas, and Philadelphia get rewarded with great players already on their roster, having picks 1, 2, and 3, and the actual bad teams get picks 4, 5, and 6? Why should
This is such a disingenuous argument, Casual, because the bad teams have been being incentivized.
The analogy here.
But the bad teams have been getting incentivized. What are we doing here? Are we
What is
pretending
gonna
that
happen?
Washington hasn't gotten a whole bunch of top 10 picks? Are we pretending that bad teams
that's just
haven't
the
been getting
nature of it.
top
There's
10
gonna
picks?
be bad teams in the sport who might, they're going to be. I mean, Real Talk had the analogy. You're going to give out these tutorings to these kids. There's just going to be kids who are in their head. They're just not going to do it. They're just not there. But you know what? There's going to be a chance where San Antonio gets to pick David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Wemby. Where would the San Antonio Spurs be if they didn't get the opportunity to pick those players?
Okay, here's the difference, though.
Why do expansion teams get high draft picks as well, by
That's
the
a
way?
great point, Captain.
Because they need a great starting ground.
Where would OKC be without Kevin Durant?
Right, they wouldn't
Bro,
be anywhere. Now,
LeBron
here's
made the
difference,
Cleveland Cavaliers $1 billion franchise.
And
Like,
Well, the NBA
Ron brought up-
gifted.
There's a
Kevin
reason why
Durant
we
to
give
Portland.
expansion
They
teams
chose
high lottery
Greg
picks.
Oden.
There's a reason why we give expansion teams high lottery picks.
Yes, and I could definitely get with that, Damian. But if you have a history of ruining guys, like for example, we talked about Charlotte. I don't know if y'all remember this, but wasn't the Dallas Mavericks just in the NBA championship like 2 years ago?
Yep.
And with them being in the NBA championship, one of the guys, how they ended up getting to the Western Conference Finals was PJ Washington. He was huge. Just so you know, he was in Charlotte earlier that year. Garbage. He was trash for them. Y'all couldn't care less about what was going on with PJ Washington. You know why? Because they weren't doing anything with him. Nothing. I don't know if you know this.
And they got Gafford from Washington.
He's a role player.
I'm
He's
not
a role
finished.
player. Okay, but he's a role player.
I'm not finished. The guy that the starting center for the Phoenix Suns who trounced the Lakers last night. His name's Mark Williams. I don't know if you remember. He was in Charlotte. What were they doing with him? What exactly were they doing with him?
Well,
Nothing.
that's why we have free
They
agents.
weren't doing anything with him.
He's a role player.
Wait, hold on. Hey, wait.
He's a role player.
Chill.
To Ron's point, when he brings up the Houston Rockets with all those draft picks that he talks about. Okay, I don't know if y'all noticed, but they had those draft picks with Steven Silas. Steven Silas out, Ime Udoka in. Otherwise, he was gonna wreck those guys. He was gonna destroy those guys. So just because you have good draft picks, real talk, right? Just because you have good draft picks, that doesn't mean that that means you're going to do right by these guys. That doesn't just mean that.
Obviously,
chill. You're
Doesn't mean
PJ.
that.
Chill. your PJ Washington point actually defeats your own point. It's a contradicting statement because you're saying that these bad franchises like a Charlotte, a player gets there and they get ruined and they can't play. But the fact that PJ Washington was a good player, even in Charlotte. Now, he's on a bad team, but he was able to become a good player because if he wasn't a good player, he wouldn't have been able to immediately impact the Mavericks.
Bro, like, what are we
Cook him, real talk.
If he was bad,
Cook his
he wouldn't
ass,
have been
real
able
talk.
to go over there to the Mavericks and contribute as a good player because he would have been bad. Like you
Put
said,
him on a
Charlotte.
grill, real talk.
It doesn't even make sense.
100%. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, real talk. But here's the difference: who drafted him? Why couldn't he do that in Charlotte? Why
Because
wasn't he able to do that?
if you're the second option on a bad team, you're going to look a lot better when you're the fifth option on the winning team. You're going to look like such a winning player when you're the fifth best player on Dallas, and then you're going to look like such a losing player when you're the second best player.
By the way, we're
on
talking
Charlotte.
about role players.
You're playing a different role when you go on a team like Dallas, and maybe PJ Washington just wasn't good enough to be hooping at the level he needed to in Charlotte. But when he goes down a role on a winning team like Dallas, then you start seeing
who's
the
developing him and who's turning him into that kind of player, as opposed to what was going on in Charlotte when he wasn't turning into that.
He's not turning into that kind of player.
He was good in Charlotte.
Charlotte
He
having
wasn't what he was in Dallas, though, who has a better developmental system.
But we're
Clearly,
comparing him at different roles, though. That's the
Dallas.
problem. If he's in Charlotte, he's like the second best player in Charlotte. But if he's in Dallas, he's like the fifth best player, which means you get the ball half as much. You have the half as much responsibility. You're just playing a different role. So it looks like you're contributing to winning and you're a better player. Is PJ Washington really a better player on Dallas than he is in Charlotte, or is he just in a different role?
I think
what happened to Dyson Daniels?
They put him in a different space to maximize him, which they didn't do in Charlotte. And if this is so, maybe he should not have been the second best player in Charlotte. Maybe they should have done a better job in drafting and putting him in a space where he can be successful. Which goes back to Ron's point. When you got the Houston Rockets and you got Jabari Smith and you got Amin Thompson and you got all of these guys
Joe,
who
when
they end up having
I kind of need him to be better than he is.
What does Reed Shepherd look like if he's in another?
Chill, but you can't compare. I know you brought up Steven Silas and Ime Udoka, and that's fair.
Yep.
I'm not saying that Steven Silas is a better coach than Ime Udoka, but what I am saying is that Steven Silas got these players in their first, second, and third year, whereas Ime Udoka gets the evolution of them in their fourth, fifth, and sixth year. A player's obviously going to be better as they get older, as opposed to when they're younger.
I mean that is true, but
okay, but he's better in his third year than his first year.
Hold up. What about New Orleans?
Jalen Green's better in his fourth year than in his first and second year.
In theory, yes, but
Kevin Porter Jr. is better now than he was in his second year. Like, obviously,
and Zion is worse, and Ben Simmons was worse, and DeJounte Murray is worse.
And check this out. Mark Jackson didn't ruin the Warriors. Steve Kerr just got a better version of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, and he got Andre Iguodala and all of this. Mark Jackson had a less version of them because they were younger. Like, do you guys sincerely think that if Mark Jackson would have stuck around, Steph Curry wouldn't have a ring? I'm not saying he would have four. I'm not saying he's a better coach than Steve Kerr. I'm just saying when you draft young players, you have to go through the maturation process of them getting older.
100%.
And better.
And the difference, the difference in that. No, my fault, real talk.
No, I just want to say.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
To me, it is a lazy assessment to just blame number one picks not being good on the organization.
Yes.
Take it. You brought up Ben Simmons, right? It's hard for me to look at Philadelphia and be like, oh my goodness, Philadelphia, what are you doing? When he's also playing next to a player who is ascending every year on in and becomes one of the best players, if not arguably the best player in the league and the MVP right next to him. He has another great prospect getting better in the same organization as he continues to not get better. So why would I look at Philly and be like, oh my goodness, Ben Simmons isn't good because Philadelphia? No. And it can always be a number of events that happens for the player not to turn into the player that they're supposed to be. Ben Simmons, he did have that back injury, right? There's a multitude of things that can happen. It's not always like, oh, number one pick didn't hit their ceiling, organization problem. Like, that's not how that goes.
But a lot of times it is an organization problem.
But
look at what happened with Dyson Daniels in New Orleans. How many players has New Orleans had that are incredibly high?
He was a throw-in in that trade. Like, here, take him too.
What are we doing here? I'll watch them in New Orleans. I had a lot of hope for Jordan Hawkins. Okay, a lot of hope. I had a lot of hope for Yves Missi. Unfortunately, these dudes all ended up in New Orleans. Last year, Zion Williamson, right? That whole thing with him losing all the weight, they've ruined that dude's career, and you could argue he's ruined his own career. I'm not really here to debate. Okay, cool. But here's the thing, casual.
Pelicans that ruined Zion. Zion ruined the Pelicans.
Oh my God.
No, Zion ruined the Pelicans. That boy brought Mariah Mills, had Mariah Mills sitting courtside.
What did they do? What did they do to him? What did they do to him?
The minute that BBL entered the Smoothie King Center, it was a wrap. The minute he brought the BBL booms into the Smoothie King Center, it was over.
I'm not blaming the Pelicans organization for that freak ass boy.
You are handing 19-year-olds adult accountability when you're not realizing is when you hand someone $10 million.
Okay, well, they need to stay in college longer than Penn. You said it right there. Cool. Keep your ass in school.
Okay, cool.
I don't want to debate
that. I don't want to debate that, Ox, because yes, but at the same time, you tear an ACL, and we've had this debate a million times. That contract goes away. You're not a first-round pick anymore.
You're the one who says we can't keep giving them adult responsibilities.
If we are going to be drafting 18-year-olds like Cooper Flagg and 19-year-olds like Zion Williamson to organizations, there needs to be an infrastructure in place to help them deal with adult life.
So you mean to tell me if Zion would have went to Miami, he wouldn't have touched the BBL in Miami?
No idea what Zion would look like in another organization. What I am telling you is I have seen what Brandon Ingram looks like in Toronto. And I saw what he looked like last year in New Orleans. And I will tell you right now, he's number 4 in the minutes in number 4 in the league in minutes played. And last year it was
an all-star in New Orleans, by the way.
Okay,
I just want to tell you, my grandma told me you could train a secretary, you could also wreck her. But what my grandma failed to mention is that if that secretary is a degenerate, I can't change those ways, okay? If my secretary likes BBLs and parties up all night with strippers, how am I going to get that secretary out of their ways? If this is who they are, that's who they are.
You know the difference with that though, Ron? You hired that secretary. You were the one who did the background. You're the one who did the background on that secretary. You are the one who found out who the secretary was.
I hired him at Harvard. They drafted Zion out of Duke. They didn't know this Zion the Mills of this world.
Because I went to Harvard, that don't mean I like coke and whores, huh?
How'd you know he was doing
because
this?
I went to Harvard. No, I ain't.
You didn't. That's the point I'm making. You didn't.
It's smart. I was
but
doing
this is
it
such a silly argument, Ron.
To real talk.
You're the one who tried to blame the organization for his degenerate ways.
With real talk.
Hold on.
Joe Dumars doing it with him.
You want to give someone $20 million and no accountability? Because you're afraid to lose him because you're a small market team. You don't want to hold a guy accountable. That's why you have to have some amount of respect for guys like Pat Riley, who are willing to at least, and Eric Spoelstra and whoever else, Greg Popovich, who are just willing to say, you know what, young man, I understand you're a phenomenal athlete, but you are not above the law. And if you are going to destroy this team, if you're going to be selfish, you're going to sit. I like that personally. I like that.
Penn, you're right. You're right in the fact that some organizations develop guys better than others. I think we can all agree on that.
I agree.
But that doesn't mean that we can penalize franchises and never give them potential stars. I think both things can be true here. I think that we know that it's just like some players are better than other players. Some organizations are better run than other players. Some teams are better at developing talent than other teams, but it doesn't mean we can penalize them to that degree.
Okay, Damian, is it penalizing bad investors to ruin their credit the first time they default on a loan? At some point, we have to ask ourselves the question. Are these rules that are being imposed by the NBA stopping you from getting a star? No, because you can't draft top 4 back-to-back years. That's not stopping you. That is creating a system that is no longer incentivizing you to be bad. See, there is a difference between you are a bad team and you need help. That I get. I understand. Things happen. Look, the Chicago Bulls, after Michael Jordan retired, Dennis Rodman was gone. They needed help. They got Elton Brand. It didn't work out. They got the Baby Bulls. They got Eddie Curry. It didn't work out. Tyson Chandler didn't work out. Finally got Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler, and it did work out. That took a long time. That took nearly 10 years. Sometimes that has to happen. But what we're saying here is not, oh, you're bad, and boom, you get the 30th pick. We're saying you can't get back-to-back top 4 picks. We're not saying, oh, you're bad, so you get the 13th pick. And oh, by the way, the Lakers and the New York Knicks are a big market team, so they get the first overall pick. Like, why are we stretching this argument into something that it was never, ever supposed to be? We're trying to tell you, listen, if I create a system that is going to penalize you for being bad as well as reward you, like I'm rewarding you for being bad once, but if you're bad for 3 straight years, you don't just get to keep reaping the rewards. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm
Like,
not
at some
I
point,
agree
like,
with you. Yeah, I agree with you with that. No, I agree with you on that.
Well,
But-
wait a minute
But
though.
what if
Some
the guy that they
teams-
draft top 4 is a bust, and then they're ended up supposed to be in the top 4?
Yeah, that's, and not only that.
Okay, well,
not- not
take the 5th overall pick the next year, and then go back to top 4 the
only
next year.
that,
It doesn't
the
really matter.
The reason why this
So now
logic
it's a
isn't
3-year
the reason why
process
this-
and not a potential 2.
Oh, the reason why this logic isn't going to work is there's a reason why I was bad. Like, for example, Ron, the Golden State Warriors with drafting Steph Curry, and then you end up drafting Klay Thompson, and then you get the kid Harrison Barnes, and then you get Draymond. The reason why they were able to get those guys because they were bad. Now it's up to us to turn these guys into players, which is what they were doing. That's why your example with Mark Jackson doesn't work, Ron, because he was developing those guys. They were turning into that. Steve Kerr comes in and enhances what he already
Why'd he get
started.
fired?
Well, he got fired because it was a multitude of things going on within the organization, like religious stuff and things like that, where we had gone as far as we were going to go with Mark Jackson at that particular time. Steve Kerr comes in, changes the offense, turns them into something not completely, just enhances what they were already doing. These guys were already long ball shooters. They were already bomb droppers. Steve Kerr enhanced that. Same thing with Draymond. Draymond was a defender. Okay, Steve Kerr comes in, enhances all of this stuff. So they were developing these guys. It wasn't like the Houston situation where Jalen Green, where Jabari Smith, these guys were on their way to being ruined. Steven Silas was ruining these guys. Then Ime Udoka comes in and he turns this thing around. So it's a combination of the two. I actually want teams, I actually want cities to get talent. I don't want them to ruin it. And we have teams who have a history of ruining guys. And I'd much rather see player A in this city as opposed to this city, because the history that you've shown me is that you're going to screw this guy up.
Well, then
you are.
Okay, so then how do you make that system? Like, give me like a little blueprint, rough draft of that system where we just like say, oh, the top markets, top development systems.
Casual. Can I give you a list of players and you tell me if under these new rules you would have been stopped as a team from drafting these guys? Would you have been stopped from drafting Nikola Jokic if you didn't have a top 4 pick?
The likelihood of finding Nikola Jokic
I'm going to give you a list
of
the lower. No. I understand.
The likelihood of finding a Nikola Jokic in the top 3.
But I think you have to acknowledge the fact that of the top 20 players in the league, they come from everywhere in the draft. Okay.
Yes.
Jokic, SGA.
But it's the likelihood, though.
No.
It's the likelihood.
Bro, if I tell you the top 20 players are not number 1 picks, then the likelihood of
gold anywhere. You can find diamonds in the rough everywhere, but the likelihood of you finding a diamond is a lot higher at the top than it is at the bottom. And that's why we have this system. Especially if these teams have really bad scouting departments, it's a lot easier on them if the process is giving them a top 3 pick so they can get the better players.
If that was the point, nobody would take.
But people tank.
We wouldn't be having this conversation if that was the case. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
No. Ron, is it a financially smart move to play the scratchy lotteries every single day? Is it financially incentivized? Is the expected value of a lottery ticket that you buy what you pay, or are you paying a premium on hope? Because when you buy a lottery ticket, I promise you are losing money every time.
Well, you have a lot better. Well, when it comes to lottery tickets, you have a lot better chance of winning money. The more expensive your lottery ticket is. So, like, let's just say, like, the better the lottery ticket, the better chance you have at winning money. So, I'm not saying you can't win the lottery no matter where you are in the draft.
You can never
but you have a better
win money
chance of
on
winning
the
money if your lottery ticket is a lot better, and that being the top 3. And so, like, who's just gonna like bank on finding their face of the franchise at like the 40th pick?
Well, how about I give you a list of guys who are borderline face of franchise, and you tell me if you could have found them outside the top 4. How about that?
It's the likelihood. I'm not saying you can't.
No. Yo, if I give you 20 names and you say yes 17 times, then the likelihood is 17 out of 20.
That was going to change.
Okay, casual. Give me a break, man. Like I know that you just want to have it one way, but how about I give you a list of 20 names?
Yeah,
you tell me yes or no.
Okay.
Hey, Pid, hold on.
There's no need for the list, Ron. We can move to another conversation, because now we're having a whole different conversation, because now Penn is now posing a question of, well, how valuable are those top 4 picks anyway? If you could just find the top 20 players aren't found in the league right now, aren't found in the top 4. Then what's the complaint? Then what is the complaint of them getting? What is the complaint of the bad teams? What is the complaint of bad teams getting the picks if it doesn't matter, because you can just find the top 20 players everywhere else in the draft? But that's a whole nother conversation.
We actually do got to pivot into these crunch time chats. So this conversation may extend into the chats based on what the people said. But Penn, your top 2 players were drafted in the top 4 anyway.
Like who the fuck are you guys? Who are you guys? Like, move on. Like we just ridiculous. And Unpredictable is a prime example of that. Like, dude, you don't like the conversation that we're having? You want us to move on? Go start your own podcast. Talk to your own people. What the hell is wrong with you? We up here talking basketball. Don't tell us to move on. We move on when we're ready to move on. You don't like it? Leave. That's how simple that is. We're actually having a really good conversation. And we're talking basketball here. Whether you like it or not, bounce. I'm sick of these dudes up here talking to us like, yo, move on. What are you talking? Even if I'm capping, even if you disagree with it, don't tell me to move on.
Nigga.
What we're doing here is we're talking basketball. If you don't like it, leave. Fuck out of here, man. Telling me to move on. This is our show. This is what we do here.
Yeah, appreciate
you
that.
You goofies got some nerve.
This has nothing to do with me getting cooked. Nothing to do with it.
Ron, I got one question for you. Ron, before we move on, I got one question for you.
You chump ass goofies in the chat got some nerve.
Ron, Mr. Comedy Mike.
Conversation, and we're having a really good debate. None of you dudes, keyboard warriors that you are, don't do this. It's real simple to sit behind the keyboard and talk that shit. Meanwhile, you won't come up here and deal with us on a regular basis. You sit behind the keyboard and talk that nonsense. And then you tell us to move on like you run the show. No, you don't. This is our thing. You're guests here, motherfuckers.
Silly goofies.
It's the panel. Religion get built on cam. With a check throw smoke and the hoes go ham. You ain't never seen hoop talk hit the raw. Every take got weight, every night we drop. This that barbershop. Courtside, worldwide tone. Welcome to the only show that really feel like numbers jumping like the score.